So today we're going to be answering one of the most common questions that we get asked from people, which is basically how to deal with being constantly overwhelmed. Now, this is a feeling a lot of people kind of have throughout their life. We've experienced overwhelm a lot in the past, okay? We don't anymore, which is awesome. But in the past, we used to experience it a lot. My own overwhelm came from a basic fact of creating an endless list of to-dos. I basically tick one off, I add three to the list. And it just never ended. And coupled with the fact of lack of sleep, too much training, basically just all these thoughts and feelings that are going on in my head, it was just like just a mix of chaos happening. And I was just literally trying to cope with it to the point where it just compound itself and just get worse and worse and worse. And it took me a while to realise I was overwhelmed and kind of find my solution on how to deal with that.
It also comes down to like almost this external pressure that we just should be able to automatically cope with overwhelm as well. That just adds even more to the overwhelm, doesn't it? Because overwhelm it's just when we've got feeling like we're in over our heads, isn't it? It's when we feel like there's just too many thoughts going on or too many feelings or all of those things combined. And that is where like the kind of the struggle comes into play. And I for sure experienced this, like John said, a lot in the past. Sometimes I can notice that overwhelm kind of slowly creeping up on me even now, and it's something I have to be aware of. I need to make sure I've got the right kind of tools in place to make sure that overwhelm doesn't kind of carry me away. And we're going to share those tools with you today.
Definitely, and there are different levels of overwhelm as well, guys. It's very important to realise this. You don't go from 0 to 100. When I experienced my overwhelm, I always go, oh, like what happened? I would always think that it just can't hit me, but then when you look back on it, it was a slow process of things building and not dealing with it. Like for me, I got to a point where you might have heard people say, "Oh, I'm just keeping my head above water." Got all this stuff going on, but
so all the time.
I'm feeling okay. I'm keeping my head above water. That's a fine line between like that's a level of overwhelm, and the next level from that is where that tipping point happens and you start to feel like you're drowning. That's like the top level of overwhelm when you've got so much going on, you don't know where to start, what to do, how to overcome it, and you just literally feel like you're drowning. So the question you need to ask yourself is, where are you feeling overwhelmed in your life right now? Okay, what areas of your life do you think you're feeling that sense of overwhelm? And it could be in one area, it could be in every area of your life. Okay, it's very important to ask yourself, reflect on that, and find out, okay, where's my focus need to go here? Okay, is it everywhere? Is it in one area? But ask yourself that question to become a little bit more aware of what's going on with your overwhelm.
And that overwhelm can show up in the form of like a to-do list that, like John said, you kind of just keep adding one thing and then you add three more. Like it's that constant feeling of you're never getting enough done, right? Or sometimes it can be that an emotional event that's happened in your life, a birth, a death, it could literally be anything that is kind of triggering this. And we call that entanglement, right? There's all these things that can now just get entangled up with themselves, and that could be external things that are going on around us, certain expectations. It could be some deep-rooted issues and traumas from the past. It could just be that you're just not even aware of what's going on, and therefore suddenly you're just feeling all these feelings and you don't know what to do with them. That in itself is that form of overwhelm.
So I'm sure obviously a lot of you ask, you'll be thinking, like, how does overwhelm actually affect your life? Like, how do I recognize it? Well, we're going to share with you a few little things, especially stuff that we've come across personally and professionally, and see if it kind of shows up for you. And that's kind of like a red flag to say that overwhelm is kicking in, and there's something to like deal with straight away instead of just push it to one side. So when it comes to your health, this is kind of the one, what I kind of seen from personal experience and professional experience is the first thing to go when people start becoming overwhelmed and stressed, which is their health gets put on the back burner. Actually, the sleep that becomes non-existent, or if it is sleeping, it's very broken or very, very, like it's just not there. Food as well, like poor food choices come in massively. So it's more to do with quick convenience rather than preparing healthy, nutritious meals. And hydration, the same. I'm sure I've done it. I've been guilty of this in the past before, which is I'll be so focused on what I'm doing, it'll be like 5 hours would go and I haven't even drunk a sip of water. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, where you just get so stuck in, you forget to eat, you forget to drink. And then movement as well, exercise just I'm sure some of you can read. I saw this a lot working in commercial gyms before, and it's the biggest kind of excuse that used to come up all the time, especially with clients, with people going, when you say, I haven't seen you for a while, why did you cancel your session? Oh, I'm too busy, I've got all this to do, I've got this going on, I've got this going on. And that's a clear sign of you getting overwhelmed, where you're actually pushing on the back burner the importance of your health, and it becomes more of a luxury and a necessity. So then you just stop doing it, doesn't it?
Yeah, where in actual fact that's the one thing that is actually probably going to be your kind of bed and your foundation at which you could get rid of the overwhelm. Another real, I think, clear sign that you might be struggling with overwhelm is if you just start focusing on one thing, and it causes your kind of perspective to shift on things. It's like you kind of just go down the rabbit hole on this one thing or two things maximum. For me, I know that it's like if I'm working on a specific project, it's like boom, everything goes into that. Whether that be a client, whether that be sort of a project type of work, whether that be a hobby, I will just go completely into kind of one frame of mind and kind of go completely down the rabbit hole on that, which in turn causes me to neglect other areas and other things that need to be done. And all that is just a sign of that I've gone too far down that rabbit hole, and I need to just zoom back out and gain some perspective. And often one of the things with overwhelm, it can come up when actually everything around you, like the external stuff, nothing's really changed in that, but your perspective of how you're looking at it starts to change as well.
For sure. And another thing to look at is your relationships, especially your like the quality of your relationships, because they get affected, they get neglected basically when you're in a sense of overwhelm. So think about if you've got a really busy job, or something's happening within your life where it's mentally affecting, where you've got all these thoughts and feelings constantly on the go all the time, and then you go home after work and you've got your family there and you're sitting down for a meal, and all that's happening in your head is what you need to finish at work, what you need to do tomorrow, what you need to finish before something happens, something bad might happen if I don't finish this project or this task, instead of being present with the people in front of you in that room that you love. And that is like a sign that's neglecting those relationships massively. And this is where it's important to be able to kind of acknowledge that and see that the fact that, like, if you've got your loved ones in front of you and you're trying to become present there, but you've got all this stuff happening in your head. Think about, if you don't get that project done, what's the worst that can happen? Or if something doesn't happen like it's supposed to, what's the worst that can happen? And then take it back to your relationships, your wife, your husband, your kids. Now, what's the worst that can happen if you can neglect them? What's more important to you? Obviously, like your quality of your relationships, or something that could maybe wait a day or two. Okay, so it's all important to be present with the people that you love and forget about anything else until it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, it's not always about finishing a project, right? That's just a good example and a common one. But it can sometimes be certain feelings that you're having, right? And you're just overwhelmed by how you're feeling, so much so that you're in your own head and you're in your own thoughts, that you're not paying attention to the people around you. And that starts to create this new attitude, and attitudes kind of start to show up and be this common thread within all of our lives. But this attitude in particular, you'll be able to refer to at some point. If you haven't done it yourself, you'll know somebody that has, and they've got this attitude of if and then, right? If I finish this, then I'll feel like that, or if I finish this, then I can do this, right? Or if I stop thinking like this, then I can do that. That is a sign of overwhelm, because that if is almost like there's an external expectation that needs to happen, that you're clearly not at peace with where you are, and that in itself is a form of overwhelm, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So the last kind of sign that I would say to really, really, really start looking out for is your emotional reactions, okay? Your emotional reactions to anything that is showing up, okay? If you're kind of at that tipping point, or you snap quite quickly, it's a sign that there is an overwhelm of emotion going on there. Whether that's emotion that's built up over time, or whether that's emotion that you've created through how you're perceiving a certain situation, it doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. You end up reacting to something around you rather than responding. We have a responsibility to respond in a resourceful way as human beings, right? And that's obviously like our opinion, but we think that, sharing kindness and love and respect builds a happy life for everybody involved, right? So when we are responding to certain situations, we are then responding from a space of calm, a space of resourcefulness, meaning there's no overwhelm present. There's not too much going on in that big melting pot that is you. Okay, the idea here is that everything is calm and collected, and you're able to react in the way that you want to and not being taken over by emotion. And if that's happening with you, then you need to listen up for the rest of this episode big time.
Definitely, and there's a few signs there to look out for that are going to kind of give you that little insight into are you starting to feel overwhelmed, or are you like deep into that drowning pool of overwhelm. And it's important to understand what not to do as well when you're in that kind of environment. And you might hear a lot of people give you advice where they'll say, oh, just accept, it's a part of life. We're busy, everyone's busy, they've got all this to do, this is happening, there's chaos everywhere. Okay, so just accept that fact, it's part of life and get on with it. No, you don't have to do that. Okay, you do never have to accept overwhelm or stress within your life. Okay, that can be controlled and you never have to experience it at all. So accepting it is one thing you never need to do. Ignoring it is another one. Okay, you might say, oh, don't worry about it, just ignore it, get on with things, it will sort itself out. No, you do not want to ignore it either.
If you're ignoring it, all you're doing is you're building and you're saving it for later.
Yeah.
Right, so even if we're talking like a couple of days or a couple of years down the line, you keep on ignoring it, it's going to poke up its rear its head, whatever the saying is.
Rear its ugly head.
That's the one. Yeah. And it's going to show itself to you, and that is in form of some of the things that we've said about earlier. So like snapping at people or getting sucked into a certain way of thinking. All of these things are going to just build up if you ignore it. So it's not the most resourceful thing to do.
Definitely, and that actually takes us into the third thing of what not to do when you're overwhelmed is take it out on people. Okay, is like shout at people, because this is what we tend to do when we're overwhelmed and we've got all this stuff going on and someone says something, someone does something or doesn't do something. It's like, okay, you just go at someone, you shout at them, you snap at them, you flip at them, and it's nothing to do with them. Okay, so it's important to understand that don't take it out on other people when you are in that kind of state. And the last one is blaming other people. Okay, and this is a big one which I used to do long time ago when I was overwhelmed or stressed, all this type of thing was coming out, is blame other people for why things like you're making me stress, you're adding more onto my plate because you're not doing something. Okay, so it's like blaming other people. It's nothing to do with them. Okay, it's your responsibility what's happening for your overwhelm and to deal with it. So remember, don't blame anyone else. Take responsibility for it. And then what we're going to share with you is how to actually now take responsibility and get rid of overwhelm.
Yeah, exactly. So, overwhelmed, give you that mental picture. It's like you try to spin all these plates all at once and things are just not going so well and it becomes completely chaotic. So in order to get rid of that, we've made it super clear for you in this episode, things that you can go away and you can do. It's literally 5 steps that you can do as soon as this podcast ends. You can go away, just take some time to yourself, implement, and then just see how you feel. Because again, if we'd have had these kind of tools and somebody just breaking it down so simply years and years and years ago when we were struggling with this stuff, we would be so grateful. So that's why we are trying to pay it forward and trying to record these episodes so that you guys really can take action. So before we go into the steps, I want you to kind of make a bit of a promise to yourself that you're actually going to take action and do them if you're serious about not feeling overwhelmed anymore.
Exactly, and they are extremely easy steps to take. Okay, and the first one is to write everything down. It's what we call like a brain dump. And you probably might have heard it before. People use it as like journaling or whatever else they do. But brain dumping is just get a piece of paper, get a pen, and then just whatever's in here, dump it onto paper until literally there's nothing else to put on paper. Every single thing, every single to-do list, every thought, every feeling, just shove it down on paper until you literally can't write anymore. There's nothing else coming out. Okay, and this is so anything where it's to do, wherever you feel, how you think, what you think you need to do, just shove it all down on paper until there's nothing left in your head.
That's one of the most productive things you can do ever, because it discharges that energy that it's taking, because you'll know from feeling overwhelmed it is exhausting, right? It doesn't feel good. And when we actually just do this brain dump and we get it all out, we actually expend that energy, and that energy kind of just kind of, we get to shake it off, and then we get to do something more resourceful with that energy rather than waste it on thinking or feeling or doing certain things. Right, so that's a great one. That's the first one. So the second one here, okay, is to get perspective. Okay, what now you like brain dumps and you're looking at this page, what on it needs to be done? What on there needs to be thought of in the way that you're thinking of? What of it actually needs to be executed, and what of it do you actually need to be feeling? Right, some of those things on that page are going to serve you, okay, and they're going to be things that you definitely know you need to do. And there's going to be some things on that page that are just not serving you, and they're just floating around and taking up your energy, and they don't need to. So in that moment, you've got two things you need to do. The first thing you need to do is, when you recognise the things you need from that paper, you now need to actually decide, okay, says who, right? Who says I need to take the dog for a walk? Who says I need to finish that project for my boss by this time? Right? Who says I need to go to the gym? Who says I need to meditate? Who says I need to do all of these things? Sometimes they are external things and they need to happen, and that's okay, provided you're kind of already set your boundaries on that and have clear expectations with the people that are expecting things of you. But sometimes you're putting that pressure on yourself, and that you need to do. Sometimes we don't even know the answer to that question. If you don't know the answer to that question, then it doesn't need to be on your list. Okay, that's a clear signal. So the other thing that you need to do is let go of the things that don't serve you. So once you've recognised, actually, this stuff is just stuff that's floating around in my mind, it doesn't even need to be there. It's not serving me anymore. You need to let it go, right? And you know, sometimes that sounds simple, but like for me to say, but it is as simple as you letting go. If you just clench your fist real tight now, right now as you're listening to this, as tight as you possibly can, for your whole arm clenching as well, just clench as tight as you possibly can, and then just let it go. That is the same thing that you do here, is you just make the decision to let it go, and you feel everything relax. You feel that layer of energy just dissipate, because it doesn't need to be there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, from when I first done the brain dump and then start to really kind of putting things into perspective, I can only imagine imagine hundreds of little things floating around in your head, and then all of a sudden when I let go of what wasn't serving me, those things literally just disappeared. And what I could only imagine is everything in my mind seemed to kind of line up, and in one direction. That was obviously whatever I was trying to achieve at the time. So the space I created in terms of just feeling calm and relaxed and knowing exactly kind of what I wanted to do, was that feeling was just it's very it's like light and free. It's like all those things that seemed to go in my mind, all that chaos just disappeared as soon as I decided to let go that wasn't serving me and focus on the stuff that was.
And this is the thing, sometimes people say to us, well, how do I let go? It's not a process,
yes.
It's a decision, right? And that's the thing, that you can decide anything you want whenever you want. Right, for some of you that are listening to this, you're going to have maybe given this label to yourself of a perfectionist, right? And one just side note here, trying to be a perfectionist or claiming that perfectionist title is a shortcut to high stress, okay? And I think that's a podcast for a whole nother day. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, I brain dumped everything, but everything on this list I need to get it perfect, right? Need to do, need to think, need to feel, it all needs to be perfect. Now, in short, perfect doesn't exist. Everybody's got their own frame of reference for what perfect looks like. Your best exists, right? What's best for you, that does exist. And only you can be the one to measure that. But what you need to start to understand is your good is good enough, right? It's good enough for you in this moment, for what you're experiencing right now. And the minute you let go of all of these other things that are not serving you, you're able to give even more of your best to the things that really need your attention.
Yeah. Excellent. And as it literally is, for me, it was a simple choice of just letting it go and getting rid of it. And I was I used to term myself as a perfectionist back in the past, and it would take me so long to do stuff that my to-do list would be, that's why it would never end. because I could never finish anything, because it's never good enough. I need to make it perfect and perfect. And the fact is, by the time I actually finished anything, I realised until I actually finish it, and then I can find ways to improve it. But until then, I just need to think, okay, what I've done is my best. And then as soon as I made that decision to just, okay, let it go, finish it, get it done, that's when things started to change. That's when, obviously, in terms of my mental, my emotional, my physical health started to improve as well, because instead of holding on to all this stuff, just let it go. And then as long as I know I'm doing my best in it, and I can honestly say that is my best, and then that's when things started to really kind of shift forward, kind of for me. And one of the things that helped me do that, which is step number 3, is prioritize. Okay, and this is very important. So you've now let go of that perfectionism. Okay, you've let go of those uncertain things. Now, whatever's left on your paper is stuff you need to do. But the next step is to prioritize what's important. And the first thing you should always prioritize without failure is yourself. You are the number one priority here. Okay, and I know people, but I've got this to do for my family. I've got this to do for my boss. Doesn't matter. Okay, nothing matters until you are in a good, resourceful state and you are focusing on you. Okay, so that means meditation, exercise, nutrition, sleep. Because rest, exactly. If you can't look after yourself, you cannot look after anyone else. Okay.
This is one of the things that John taught me. Like when I first met John, and obviously we ended up getting together. That was one of the things that he almost like drummed into me somehow. I still don't know how he did it, but that is something that has been an absolute game changer for me, because I was always, I guess what you call like a people pleaser. Always wanted to kind of please everybody else. Everybody else's needs would come first, and my own would come second. And then I was at this state of burning out and not being able to kind of keep up with that high expectation, but also I wasn't able to be my best, to grow from there as well. And when I was able to just hit pause and take a step back and take care of myself and prioritise myself, I was able to come back a million times further than I was before.
Yeah, and that's like, just think about the fact that if you have got a very important project at work, or you've got your family's waiting for you at home, and you're still like there at 8 o'clock in the evening thinking, I need to get this done. Okay, like what type of work or what's going to happen? What type of work are you going to produce in terms of quality? Okay, to that, just because you're stressed and you think I have to get it done. And then what type of result are you going to get when you do get home late at night and you're completely exhausted and you've got no energy for your loved ones? So think about it. By looking after yourself, then you're going to be able to, again, be more productive, more creative, and more responsive and engaged and present when you're at work, when you're at home, when you're with yourself. So it's very important to look after yourself first. And I know people go, oh, but that's selfish because I'd rather look after other people. That's selfish. By focusing on other people first, that's selfish because you can't give them everything that you are if you're not there present and actually at a optimal level when it comes to your mental, physical, and emotional health as well. Okay, so it's very important to prioritize you. Once you prioritize you and you're rested, you're energized, you're productive, you're creative, then you go to what's on your list, what's going to give you the biggest return of investment. Okay, so on your list, look at what do I need to do, and not the easy, quick things to go, okay, I can send this email and that's done. Well, hey, win. Or I could think, okay, this big thing needs to happen now. Okay, and this is going to give me the biggest return of investment in terms of investing my time, my energy into it. It's going to give me a big return. Okay, and then work your way down that list to the less important, but still things that need to happen.
Yeah, cool, nice. So step 4 is to then make a plan. So now you've got all of these, like all this stuff is now out of your head, it's now on paper, you've now kind of prioritised it. Now you need a plan. You need a plan of how you're going to execute and move forwards from here. It's one thing to know about it, but it's another thing to then do something about it. So make a plan. Whose help do you need to be able to execute what needs to be done? How are you going to do it? All right, how are you going to make sure you implement these things and execute on the things that you've done? When are you going to do it? And the big thing that you'll always hear me talk about is boundaries. What boundaries do you need to put in play in order to be able to do what it is now that needs to be done? How are you going to execute this plan? So those boundaries could be anything from making sure your phone is switched off and you're just focused on one thing. It could be putting a boundary in place that you're going to say no to certain things. Like John said, if you're still at the office at 8 o'clock at night and your family's waiting on you at home, you've got to put some boundaries in there. No, I'm going to leave the office at 6 and I stand by that no matter what needs to be done. And you might need to communicate that to the team around you or to your boss, and come up with some kind of compromise of how that can work, because there's always a way, there's always a solution, but often we don't communicate what those boundaries are, and therefore we then kind of almost expect other people to know this stuff about us, and we don't. Like, they don't. They're not mind readers. You need to express your boundaries, you need to ask for help when you need it, and you need to have a clear idea of how you're going to move forwards in order to be able to overcome your overwhelm.
Nice. And the last and final step, step 5, is about taking action. Okay, you can have the best plan in the world, you can have everyone helping you under the sun, but if you're not taking responsibility and taking action, then you're only going to go straight back to square one and basically live the life you've been living of overwhelm, stress, and just kind of struggling through life. So it's important. So once you've done all these steps, is to take action immediately, okay, on everything. So plan everything, make sure it happens, do it, look after yourself. If you have to get up earlier in the morning to make sure it happens, then you do that, whatever it takes to get you to the point where you never have to experience overwhelm ever again.
Yeah, it's interesting you use that actually, because that's one of the things I actually do. That's one of the kind of things that I put in my plan, is I know if I've got a lot going on, I will make sure I wake up an hour earlier to get a head start so that I feel like I've got that breathing space. And with overwhelm, one of the feelings that kind of can come with that is that feeling of almost like suffocating, and it's like, oh my god, like I literally just need to keep on going. Like you said, it's exhausting. You just need to take a moment to breathe and kind of just give that time to yourself, and that alone can be a game changer. So that's a really cool example that you just kind of added in there. So guys, by now you should have an idea of what overwhelm actually is. You should have an idea of what not to do with the overwhelm, how to recognise it, and you should now obviously have these 5 steps that you want to go away and execute.
So now that you know this stuff, your next thing is now you got to choose what you want. Okay, you know it, so there's now no excuse to do anything about it. So the choice is you keep living the life you're living, whether you're living in that overwhelm, that stress state, or you get rid of overwhelm completely, okay, and you live a stress-free life where you're basically doing everything you want to do. You're looking after yourself, you're looking after your job, you're looking after your family. Everything is happening, but in a more relaxed, calm, and kind of flowing, free state. And this is where that magic of life happens. You're living, okay, you're thriving, and you're not just surviving, trying to basically struggle through each day. But if you've tried these steps and you're thinking, okay, I've tried these steps and I can see it's starting to work, but I'm still struggling to kind of really deal with that overwhelm and really get rid of it completely, and that's absolutely normal, okay? So a lot of people will get to that stage, and if you are struggling, then don't be afraid to reach out to us, okay? You can book a free discovery call with us where we can kind of delve deeper into why that overwhelm is there and kind of give you some tips and a plan to move out of that overwhelm for good.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Like, one of the things we said earlier was that entanglement, right? The entanglement of all of these kind of thoughts, feelings, things that you need to do. They get so intricate and so formed within us that we sometimes need help in untangling them, and sometimes having that kind of different set of eyes that's neutral, kind of listening to that, it makes it a lot easier for you to untangle them, because when we're in that picture, it's hard to be able to see it and what's really actually going on. So there's something really important, and that's something we'd love to help you with. So we're here for you as always. I think by now you know where to find us, but if you don't, the link will be in the bio here.
Definitely. So that is it from us today. Thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed what we've been speaking about. And if you do have any questions at all, as always, reach out to us at any time. But until then,
see ya.
Bye.